I moved to this apartment complex outside Milwaukee about 3 years ago. It's nothing special, red brick building from the 70s, kind of ugly, but cheap and quiet. I'm in Unit 5A. Just me and my dog, Boomer. I like it that way. It's a quiet place. Most of the residents are older retirees, divorced folks, or people who keep to themselves. That's part of what drew me here. No drama. You nod to people in the hallway, maybe exchange a few words in the laundry room, but that's it. Everyone minds their business. Then 6B got weird. Now, 6B is right down the hall from me. That apartment had been empty for at least 6 months. The previous tenant was some older guy who passed away. I don't know the full story, but I think it happened inside the apartment. Landlord Steve mentioned something about bio-cleaning, so I'm guessing it wasn't pretty. Anyway, for months the place was being renovated. New flooring, drywall, maybe fixing water damage. I didn't really care until late October rolled around. I remember the exact week. The lobby had these cheap Halloween decorations of paper skeletons taped to the doors, plastic pumpkins, you know the type. And then one morning, I'm walking Boomer, and I notice the blinds in 6B are shut. I stop. Huh, that's new. And that night, there's a yellow light coming from under the door. Not bright, just dim, flickering like an old lamp. My name is Matt. I was 18 when this happened, summer after my freshman year at college. I didn't have much planned, just needed a job to pay off some loans and maybe save up for a used car. When my aunt offered me a gig at the marina she managed in rural North Georgia, I said yes without thinking. It had boat docks, a few cabins, some fire pits, and a general store that closed at 7 p.m. My job was simple: watch over the property at night, make sure no one broke in, no wild animals wandered too close, and that no teenagers tried to sneak in and party. It was a small private campground by Lake Blue Ridge. Free lakeside cabin, no tourists, peace and quiet. No ripples, no insects, dead still. The pay was solid. When I passed by cabin 6, I noticed a warm flicker. Inside looked like candlelight. No frogs, no owls, not even whined through the pine trees. Just silence. It was locked up for renovations. But there's something they never put in the job description. Something they didn't warn me about. The first night was quiet, too quiet. I remember walking the grounds, flashlight in hand, checking the cabins. When I realized I wasn't hearing the usual sounds, the lake was flat like glass. It felt like time had stopped. I shook it off, told myself I was overthinking, and finished the round. But no one was supposed to be there. I unlocked the door slowly, stepped inside, and it was ice cold. Even though it was mid-July, there was no candle, no lantern, nothing, just a chair tipped over, and this weird wet smell, like lake water and mildew. As I turned to leave, I swear I heard a woman whisper something, but I couldn't tell from where. It wasn't coming from inside the cabin, it was coming from under it. He was in the parking lot, unloading cleaning supplies from his truck. I walked over and casually asked, "Hey, did someone finally move into 6B?" Steve stopped what he was doing and gave me a confused look. "No," he said, "still empty." I actually laughed. "Wait, seriously? I've been hearing stuff coming from there every night." "Lights on too." He looked at me hard, not like he was joking but like something clicked for him. And then he said something I'll never forget. "There's no power running to that unit right now." I felt my stomach drop. Back in my apartment that night, I was restless. The air felt heavy. Boomer wouldn't settle down. He kept pacing from the door to the window like he was trying to guard me. At exactly 2:15 a.m., the dragging started again. But this time, it was slower, longer, like someone was pulling something heavy across the floor. I tiptoed to my front door and crouched down, looking through the gap under the door of 6B across the hall. And I swear to God, I saw movement, not a foot, not a leg. Just the shadow of something passing by, tall, wrong-shaped. I could not make out a face or anything, but I got the sense it was watching. I stood up so fast I nearly fell backward. Boomer barked once loud and then growled until I locked the deadbolt behind us. Next day, I told Steve everything. I expected him to tell me I was being paranoid, that I was hearing things. Instead, he said, "All right. Let's go take a look." He brought the master key. I followed him down the hall, trying to act cool, but inside I was shaking. We got to 6B, and he slid the key into the lock. Nothing. It wouldn't turn. He frowned. Tried again. Harder. "It's like something's jammed in there," he muttered. Finally, using a screwdriver and a lot of force, he managed to push the door open. And inside, the apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no curtains, no lights, just bare walls, a layer of dust on the floor, and that smell of stale air. It looked like no one had stepped foot in there for months. Except for one thing, a single wooden chair, placed dead center in the room, facing the far corner. Steve walked in and stopped short. I stayed at the threshold. He pointed to the floor beneath the chair and said, "What the hell is that?" I looked. Someone had carved a symbol deep into the hardwood floor, almost like an infinity symbol, but twisted, with a single eye in the middle. It was dug in like someone had taken a knife and gouged it over and over again. We did not stay long. That night, the tapping came back. Only this time, it was not just in 6B. I heard it on my walls. Boomer growled nonstop. I grabbed my flashlight, thinking maybe a rat got in the vents or something. Then, out of nowhere, Boomer barked and charged toward the hallway. He was going straight to 6B. The door was open, wide open. I followed, heart pounding, when I looked inside. Someone was sitting in the chair, back turned, still, pale arms, thin shoulders, hair hanging stringy and wet, like they just climbed out of a lake. I wanted to run, but then he turned his whole upper body, stiffly, like it did not want to move. And his face, it was not right. Like a mannequin, wax-like, no emotion, empty eye sockets. He opened his mouth just a little, and whispered, "You let me in." I don't remember running back. I just remember locking every bolt I had and sitting against the door, holding Boomer, heart racing so loud I could hear it in my ears. I used to live in a small neighborhood about 20 minutes outside of Kansas City. Suburban, safe, quiet. One of those places where everyone has a 2-car garage, kids ride their bikes after school, and you wave at your neighbors even if you do not really know them. We moved there right after my wife gave birth to our son, Lucas. I wanted him to grow up somewhere peaceful, where we did not have to worry about crime or crazy people. Funny how wrong you can be. Our house was at the end of the cul-de-sac. Next door was a man named Howard. Single guy, probably late 50s, kept to himself. He did not mow his lawn often, and he did not decorate for the holidays, but he was polite. I'd see him on occasion when I was putting out the trash or grilling. He always gave this weird half wave, never said much. At first, I thought he was just lonely, harmless. Then one day early spring I noticed Howard had started digging in his backyard. Not like a little gardening or planting flowers. No, this was digging. He had a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and this damp blue tarp spread out over the grass. I figured maybe he was putting in a koi pond or something. So I made a joke when I saw him out there, building a swimming pool. Howard, he did not laugh. He just stared at me, sweat dripping down his temples, dirt smeared on his shirt. Then he muttered, "Getting ready." I said, "Getting ready for what?" He did not answer. I told my wife about it that night. She laughed it off, said maybe he was building a bunker. The Midwest gets its fair share of tornadoes. People are weird about that stuff. But over the next couple of weeks, he kept digging. Every single day, for hours, and the hole kept getting bigger. Way too big for anything normal. By the third week, it was at least 10 feet across and who knows how deep. The wheelbarrow was full of dark, heavy dirt, and he'd replaced the shovel with some kind of post-hole digger. At night, My wife and I would peek through our bedroom blinds, and there he'd be still digging under a floodlight mounted to a pole he stuck in the ground. Sometimes we saw him just standing inside the pit, staring straight down like he was expecting something to crawl out. Or, climb in. I told myself to stop being paranoid. But then, stuff started disappearing. At first, it was little things. Our dog's water bowl went missing from the backyard, then our garden hose. Then, one morning, I noticed the gate latch was broken like someone had forced it open from the outside. I confronted Howard about it. I walked over during the day, trying to keep things friendly. "Hey, did you see anyone around last night?" Our gate was busted. He was standing at the edge of the hole, just looking down. He didn't even turn around when he said, "You should build one too." I asked, "A what?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot, his face sunburned. Like he hadn't slept in days. "A pit," he said. "For when they come." I asked, "Who?" He did not answer, just walked back into his house like the conversation never happened. That night, I stayed up with the lights off, watching from our window. Around 2:30 a.m., Howard came out with a bundle wrapped in black trash bags. He struggled to carry it. Whatever was inside it was heavy. I watched as he lowered it slowly into the pit. Then, he dropped to his knees beside it and started talking. I could not hear what he was saying, but he was whispering something fast, almost like a prayer. Then, he threw handfuls of dirt on top and just sat there. The next day, I called the police. I told them everything. That my neighbor was digging a massive hole, hauling stuff into it in the middle of the night, and acting unstable. They came by that afternoon. I watched from the window as two officers talked to him in the yard. He smiled the whole time, friendly, calm. They looked into the pit, laughed about it, talked for a few minutes more, then left. Later that day, one of the officers came by my door. He said, "He told us he's building a storm shelter." Did not seem threatening. I said, "At 2 in the morning?" With a body-sized bundle, he just shrugged. "We cannot do anything unless he's breaking the law." That night, it got worse. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of scraping on the side of our house. Boomer, our lab, was going nuts downstairs, barking and slamming into the back door. I ran down, flipped on the patio light. There was nothing there, but the gate was wide open again, and muddy footprints, bare feet, led from our fence to the back of our house. I called the police again. They came, looked around, said they'd add extra patrols. Useless. The next evening, my wife took Lucas to her sister's place. She did not want to stay in the house anymore. I did not blame her. That night, I sat in the dark, watching Howard's yard. And at exactly 2:47 a.m., he came out again. Only this time, he was not carrying anything. He just stood at the edge of the pit, staring into it. Then he stepped in. I stood up. I thought he fell at first, but then he started climbing down a wooden ladder I had not seen before. He disappeared into the darkness. For 10 full minutes, there was nothing. Then I swear on everything I saw something crawl out. It was not Howard. It was tall, but hunched over. Long limbs, skin that looked wet. It climbed out slowly, silently, and it turned toward my house. I backed away from the window, locked the doors, pulled the blinds, sat in my kitchen holding a hammer like that was gonna do anything. I did not sleep. At dawn, I looked out the window again. The hole was filled in, completely, like it had never existed. Just fresh dirt, smoothed over, no shovel, no ladder, no tarp, and Howard. Gone, vanished. His truck was still there. His mail piled up on his porch for days, but no one saw him again. Eventually, the landlord came and cleared out the house, said he had not paid rent in weeks. Said the basement had a weird smell, but nothing suspicious. The cops did not care. We moved a month later. Sometimes, I still think about that night, what came out of that pit, and whether that thing ever really left, because sometimes at 2:47 a.m. I wake up, and I swear, I hear scratching at the back door. When my wife and I first moved to Portland, we were broke, newly married, and desperate for a place, any place to live. So, when we found this duplex on the northeast side of town, we took it. No second guessing. The rent was cheap, utilities were included, and the landlord did not even run a credit check. Too good to be true, right? The house was old 1920s, at least stand split into an upper and lower unit. We got the downstairs. The upstairs was already occupied by someone the landlord only referred to as Ms. Kaufman, said she'd lived there for a long time. Kept to herself. When we asked how long, he just said, "Longer than I've owned the building." We moved in on a rainy Thursday, and from the very first night, it was like she never slept. We'd hear her walking overhead constantly, footsteps pacing back and forth, sometimes for hours. At first, we chalked it up to the thin walls and creaky floors. But then it became clear. This woman was awake all night. Every night, the footsteps never stopped. She was not heavy-footed or stomping. It was slow, measured, back and forth, across the same part of the floor. I remember lying in bed at 3 a.m. our first week there and just staring at the ceiling like, how is she still walking around? My wife, Rachel, joked, maybe she's a ghost, but she said it like half a joke. The other half sounded real. We never saw her, not once. No chance encounters at the mailbox. No glimpses through the upstairs windows. The curtains were always closed. And the weirdest thing, her light was always on. You'd look at the upstairs windows at noon, midnight. For a.m. it did not matter. That pale yellow glow was always shining through the blinds. One morning, I tried to knock on her door, just to introduce myself, be neighborly. I climbed the steps to the porch and knocked once. Immediately before my hand even dropped, I heard movement. Quick, panicked footsteps, then silence. I waited. Nothing. I knocked again. A soft voice, raspy and low, came from behind the door. Please don't. I froze. Sorry, I said. Did not mean to bother you. Just wanted to say hi. The voice didn't respond. I stood there for another 10 seconds, then left. That's when the sound started changing. The pacing turned into dragging, like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. Sometimes it was metal scraping, like furniture being moved, but it didn't make sense. No one rearranges their room every night at 2 a.m. And then we started hearing something else. Whispers. Not loud enough to make out words, but unmistakable. I had brushing my teeth, and I'd hear this soft murmur coming through the ceiling vent, like someone was whispering right into it. Fast and frantic, like praying. Rachel heard it too? She told me one night I was folding laundry, and I swear she was standing right above me, talking. I could not understand the words. It felt ... wrong. I asked if she thought we should move. She did not answer. Then things got worse. One morning, I came out to the porch and found dead birds. 3 of them, perfectly arranged in a triangle. No blood, no signs of trauma, just lying there. Necks bent at the same angle. I checked our security cam, but the footage was glitchy from 2:15 to 3 a.m. Convenient, right? That same night, we heard something fall upstairs, hard, like furniture tipping over. Then nothing. We waited, still nothing. Finally, I called the landlord. Told him we were worried about Miss Kaufman's health, that she might have fallen. He sighed like he'd heard it all before and said, I'll call her. Don't go up there. I asked why not. He just said, trust me. She does not like visitors. That was a Friday. Saturday night, around 1:30 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom. I left the light off and stood in the dark, half asleep. And then I saw it, through the bathroom vent, to eyes looking down. Not glowing, not exaggerated, just normal human eyes, staring. I screamed, flicked on the light, and they were gone. I got on a chair and looked through the vent. Nothing but darkness. Steve sealed 6B shut the next day. He did not ask questions. Just brought plywood and power tools and covered the door. Said he was going to take care of it. That was 2 months ago. And some nights, when I walk past that boarded-up door to do laundry, I hear it, tap, drag, tap tap tap. Sometimes, I think I hear breathing. And every time I look through my peephole at night, I swear, there's something standing just out of view, still, waiting, because I let it in. Rachel did not sleep that night. Neither did I. We decided we were done. We'd stay one more week, break the lease, and go. But the house was not going to let us leave easily. The next night, we heard the dragging again. But this time, it came from inside our apartment, from the hall. I jumped out of bed, turned on every light in the place, and checked every room. Rachel was crying. Boomer, our beagle, was hiding under the bed, whining. There was no one there, no windows open, no signs of a break-in. But then I looked up and saw muddy handprints on the ceiling, like someone had been crawling up there. We slept in the car that night. 2 days later, the landlord called me, said Miss Kaufman had passed away. I said, "Wait, what?" He said, "I went to check on her after your call. Police found her. She'd been dead for a while." I said, "That's not possible. We heard her walking every night." And I'll never forget what he said next. "She died 2 years ago." I said, "Excuse me." "She died in that unit. It's been vacant ever since." I just did not want to scare off new tenants. I could not even speak. We left that same day. Left the deposit. Left some of our furniture. Did not care. Just wanted out. We moved across town. Different neighborhood. Brighter. Louder. I don't care. I'll take loud neighbors over that quiet, haunted hell hole any day. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I swear I hear footsteps above me, slow, pacing, like she followed us. Because the woman upstairs, she never sleeps. I grew up in cities. Noise, neighbors, traffic, none of it ever really bothered me. But a few years ago, my wife and I decided we needed a change. A quieter life, more space, maybe even chickens. We found a house on the edge of a small town in Oregon. Wide yard, tall trees, a wooden fence around the property line. It felt safe. There was only one house close 2 hours just beyond the backyard fence, a single-story place with dark windows and a sagging porch. The listing said it had been vacant for a while, so I did not think much of it. But about 3 weeks after we moved in, someone moved in there. I noticed the lights first, dim, flickering, like those old CFL bulbs that never fully light up. Then I saw a car, old, boxy, and gray, never moved, just parked in the driveway at a weird angle. I did not see the neighbor himself until a few days later. I was mowing the backyard when I saw movement behind the fence. I turned off the mower and listened. That's when I heard the sound click, like a camera shutter. I walked over, leaned on the fence, and peeked through one of the small gaps between the boards. He was standing in his yard, facing my house, holding a camera, not a phone. A camera, the old kind, with a lens the size of a soda can. And it was pointed right at me. I stepped back, startled, but tried to play it cool. I waved. He did not move, didn't wave back, just stood there, staring through the lens. I went back inside, told my wife. She asked if maybe he was photographing birds or something. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "Maybe he's just a little eccentric." Yeah, eccentric. That night, I looked out the kitchen window into our yard and saw a small red dot glowing from the tree line. One of those infrared camera sensors. I stepped outside with a flashlight, heart pounding. As I moved across the grass, the dot disappeared. I looked all around, nothing, but I swear, I could feel someone watching me. A few days later, while taking out the trash, I noticed something new on our shared fence. Cameras, 4 of them, mounted high-angled inward, toward our backyard, not toward his property, ours. I went back inside, took a picture, and emailed it to the HOA. They responded the next day saying the houses were technically outside their jurisdiction since they bordered state-owned forest land. So, in other words, nothing they could do. Now, listen, I'm not paranoid by default. I work from home. I'm pretty level-headed, but things kept getting weirder. The cameras were not just recording randomly, they moved. I had tested them. Step into my yard with a hoodie pulled up, turn my back, and the camera would stay still. But if I turned around and looked directly at it, the lens would click and shift ever so slightly. I started noticing it in small ways. Every time I walked into the backyard with a cup of coffee. Click. When my wife sunbathed on the patio. Click. When I let our dog out at night. Click, click, click. And then the note started. Folded paper left in our mailbox, but with no postage. No envelope. Just little handwritten messages on yellow lined paper. You're not alone out there. Nice dog. Eyes up. I kept them, took them to the local police. They said unless there was a direct threat or trespassing, their hands were tied. He's allowed to install security cameras on his own property, the officer said. Just try not to engage him. Try not to engage him. Right. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m. At 1:47, I looked out the upstairs window and saw a faint glow in the neighbor's yard. I turned off all the lights, crouched, and watched. There he was, standing behind one of his cameras, adjusting it. Then, he looked right at me, like he knew I was watching, and held up something in his hand, a photo. Even from that distance, I recognized it. It was me, standing in my backyard. Taken through my own kitchen window, I yelled, ran outside, climbed the fence, did not even think, but when I got to his yard it was empty. No cameras, no tripod, no man, nothing. I swear, in the 15 seconds it took me to get over the fence, it all vanished. I walked around his house, knocked on the door, no answer. I went home, called the police again. When they showed up, he still did not answer the door. They eventually left, told me if he came onto my property, to record it. The next morning, my dog was missing. I searched everywhere. The yard, the woods, the local shelters, put up signs. Posted online, nothing. And then, the next day, a new note in my mailbox. No envelope. Same yellow paper. Just 3 words. Check your shed. I ran out back. Our shed was locked. I always lock it. But this time, the padlock was gone. I opened the door. Slowly. Inside was a stack of photographs. Hundreds of them. All of us, me, my wife, the dog, even friends who had visited. All taken from behind fences, through windows, around corners. Some were years old, from before we moved in. There was one of my wife wearing the same dress she wore when we first toured the house, meaning someone had been watching us even before we lived here. I dropped the photos and ran back to the house. That night, we packed our things and left. Didn't even sleep. Just threw everything in the car and drove to a motel. We moved out the next week, found a condo closer to downtown. Smaller yard, more people, more noise, and the day we moved, there was one final envelope in the mailbox. Inside, a photo of the 2 of us, standing on the porch from that same morning. The picture hadn't even been taken yet when we first checked the mail. It was taken as we opened the mailbox, as if the camera was watching us. In real time, we never went back, and now, even in this new place, sometimes I feel it, that little click in the distance, that sense that someone just beyond the fence is still watching, still recording, and still waiting. If these stories made your skin crawl, hit that like button. Share it with someone who thinks they read a grown-up to be scared of the dark, and don't forget to subscribe.